Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Miles Free. I'm the Director of Industry Research and Technology for the Precision Machine Products Association, and I'm here to welcome you to the 2017 PMTS and to the show here in the Absolute Machine Tool LICO show floor demo. We're going to be looking at the power of parallel processing on a LICO LND 65D turn mill center. I think this is pretty exciting. Everybody knows you can make parts in a series and you just make them one at a time. This power of parallel is a really cool insight, and I really hope you enjoy this demonstration. Greg Knight, here's your microphone.
Thank you. On behalf of Absolute Machine Tools, welcome to PMTS 2017 and the Power of Parallel. My name is Greg Knight, and I've been in the production machining industry for about 40 years now. I owned a screw machine job shop for 20 years. We ran brownies, cones, CNC lathes and mills, and a whole lot of peripheral secondary equipment. I spent another 15 years in applications, sales, and marketing for the ServoCam product, and the last 5 years as importer and distributor for the LICO products. Earlier this year, we sold that business to Absolute Machine Tools, who's been an importer of CNC machine tools since 1988, and I went to work for them as Vice President of Sales and Production Turning. And forgive me because instead of pinning something here now, I got to use two hands at once. Screw machines have been evolving since the late 1800s, a little longer than I've been around, but not a whole lot. Brown & Sharp's original patent was really for combining the material chucking and feeding in one cam revolution. And 100 years later, that was still a feature of those machines. Because the machines were operated manually, you could only perform one operation at a time. So serial was the norm. On this older B&S wire feed machine, you could have multiple tools on the machine, but because an operator was operating it by hand, you could only bring one tool in at a time. Mechanical drives, which could operate the slides simultaneously, allowed for the overlapping of operations. Single spindle machines tied all the cutting slides into the back shaft of the machine for synchronization. Multi-spindle machines combine the cross slide and the turret at each spindle in order to achieve that overlapping. Both of these operated through mechanical designs actuated by cams that were configured to specific parameters. On the LICO machines, all slides are 2 or 3 axis and can operate simultaneously. All slides are actuated by ball screws and drives in all axes. There's no air or hydraulic actuation of the slides on these machines. More than one customer has described this particular model over here, the LNTS, as a Brown & Sharp on steroids. For years, CNC salesmen came into my shop and told me that I'd better get on board with the times. I was going to get left behind. But every application I looked at with them, my screw machines were beating their cycle time terribly. Even with the advent of the twin spindle machines, they were still much, much slower, although they could now drop the parts off complete, eliminating some secondaries. Smaller Swiss machines were really the first to employ CNC technology on multi-slide equipment. They're the perfect machines when the length to diameter turning ratios exceed 4 to 1. But heavy metal removal is better done on fixed headstock machines. They're just a bit more rigid. We have a next turn Swiss over here, And down in booth 665 at the Absolute booth, there's a couple of different Swiss machines. If a heavy-duty compact Swiss turning is your need, then take a look at those. Index and Traub were really the first in the fixed headstock, larger diameter, overlapping slide machines with CNC actuation, and they came with a pretty good price tag. Great machines. These companies were truly the pioneers in the fixed headstock CNC multi-slide turning. And they've evolved into some quite sophisticated machine tools, still with a hefty price tag. LICO has presented the market with the fixed headstock, multi-slide, multi-axis CNC screw machines that are affordable. From medium to complex parts, LICO has a multi-slide machine that will make the parts that you make. A little history about LICO. They began actually making cam machines. So they do understand the screw machine market and the screw machine concept. Being familiar with the screw machine market, LICO began developing their first CNC machines in the early 1990s. Late in the 1990s saw the first LNTS platform. LICO continued their success with the LNDD twin spindle machine, which is over here. The LICO machines come equipped with tool holders in all positions, dual high pressure coolant pumps, or oil pumps I should say, air conditioned control cabinets, parts catchers, parts conveyors, chip conveyors, and that's all built into the price. So now let's take a look for a minute at the power of parallel. This represents a customer who was running a part on a twin spindle, single turret CNC lathe. So he's dropping the part off done. There's nothing rocket science there. It's pretty straightforward. He's got a main spindle and a sub spindle, and they're running the work there. It got the part dropped complete, but they weren't terribly thrilled with their cycle time. So we looked at this on a, this represents a twin spindle, twin turret machine. And as you can see, there was quite a bit of productivity improvement there. The cycle time is reduced by the amount equal to the sub spindle, which was a 30% cycle time decrease. That results in a 44% productivity increase. By the way, for anyone who wants to argue about that later, I can show you the math, but it's not the same percentage. If you divide by about 0.66, you'll come out with the average difference. We then looked at that part. Actually, this was on an LNTS platform, and here is where you can see we're overlapping the cross slides as well as the sub spindle. Actually, this part could be run on either the LNTS or the LNDD. This particular one was done on an LNDD. As you can see now, the cycle time is reduced by 54% for an 83% productivity increase. And I've seen some things on CNC lathes that we're actually running 3 times as fast. This was an actual time study that we did for a customer, so it's not a trumped up part. It's just one that we picked out to use. We overlapped the 4 tools here simultaneously to get this cycle time. LICO equipment with this cross-slide concept is able to overlap up to 5 tools in the cut at once. Now, I'm not going to tell you every part cycle you're going to get 5 tools in there, because there's just not room for them all at once. But it's real common to be getting 3 and 4 tools at a time in here, which makes for a huge productivity gain. Screw machine people already understand this concept of overlapping slides. CNC programmers who are used to single turret or even twin turret machines may have a little learning curve because the optimization mode is different. On a single turret lathe, you optimize each tool in the cut to get your best cycle time. Once you're overlapping slides, you may have a lower common denominator, so some tools may not run as fast as they could ultimately, but your cycle time, as you can see from the chart before, is much, much faster. How we process precision parts has changed. It used to be, at least on my shop, you machine the first side, it sits there in the pan for a while, and then eventually someone gets around, or maybe you put it on the same machine to the second side, and somebody stands there and puts it in the machine and pushes the button, and that's as close to parallel as it gets as you might put it on that same machine at the same, or a different machine at the same time. Then we kind of evolved into the cell concept. It might have been manual. You might be running parts off a multi-spindle and taking them and putting them in a drill press or putting them in a lathe or another piece. Or even over here we have a machine called a Q5 that does automated loading and unloading and gang tool kinds of things. Today there are other ways around that cell concept besides having somebody stand there and do it. Again, we evolved into the twin spindle lathes. They dropped off parts complete, but the CNC multi-slides not only can drop complex parts complete, they can do them at cycle times that approach at least screw machine speeds. There used to be a choice. You could have CNC quality or you could have screw machine speed. Today, you can combine the best of both of those worlds. And that's really what we're talking about with the bringing CNC technology back, in a sense, to the concept of parallel and overlapping slides. The LICO platform is configurable for the number of cross slides. This one can have 3 or 4. This one can have 2 or 3. Or you can get the machines with a 7 live tool, 5 fixed tool, XYZ gang slide on the other side. So for this machine, you can have a double Y machine, for instance. These machines are quick to set up if you pay attention to standardization. And I don't care where you are or what you're doing in the industry, if you're not standardizing your tooling and what you're doing, you're leaving time on the table. I have customers, one who was here this morning, that he's running 2 and 3 different parts per shift at times on his LICO machines. Multi-spindle shops experiencing lower volumes, CNC shops requiring larger order quantities, shops looking to replace machines that fewer and fewer people are able to set up and maintain. Those are all good opportunities for looking at machines like these. LICO has been able to be an answer for those kinds of issues for several years now. Okay, now we're going to go over here to the machine. And everyone, this is Phil Jutt, and he's our applications engineer. And the first thing, let's see, I need to figure out how to stay out of the way here, so let's do this. And Phil, if you'd pull that slide out a little bit. Can we see that one? Can we do one of the upper ones? Sorry. What I want to show you here on the machine is right here. This dovetail and gib slide. These are the same kinds of slides that you have on your Brown and Sharp machines. And the reason that's important, these machines have the rigidity on their cross slides that you can still run form tools. Now, you may not always want to. If your quantity's small, there's no point. But there are times that form tools can save you a lot of time. These machines are still capable of doing that. You try to put a form tool on a typical curved coupling turret lathe, and by the time you get very wide, you're going to get chatter. These are a little more substantial. Okay, Phil, if you would run a part cycle. This part cycle is actually programmed at steel speeds and feeds. We've got brass in here, so we don't have to be changing tooling all the time for the machine. So we'll see how well this works through the glass. So this is the back cross slide and the turret overlapping at once. And there are various times when we can have 2 and 3 of these tools in the cut at once. In just a minute here, this will come over, and there's that slide working, and the back slide, and the drill here. The part that you saw that was in the it's now working on the back spindle. Sorry, it's just very difficult for the camera to follow all that. This is now working on the back spindle while we've got cutting going on up here. Oh, there we go. You can kind of see it there. That's thing that you see spinning there is a polygon tool. Again, later we'll show you the parts here, and you can kind of get an idea of what they're doing. Actually, let me grab a couple of these, and you can just kind of pass them around a little bit and get an idea of what it's making there. This particular model has a turret-mounted subspindle, whereas this is a twin spindle model. So the back working is done in a different way. This is now putting that hex on, and it doesn't show up on there. That's all right. That's the subspindle there. We're using it to pull out instead of using a bar loader. It's just holding on. This subspindle can synchronize at any spindle speed the machine can run, so you don't have to drop it down to 0, or sometimes on some machines you have to drop it down to 50 or 100 RPMs. No need to do that for this machine. Okay, we'll run a part on this one over here. So this machine is a little different. It's a little different in that instead of a turret-mounted subspindle, this one has a full independent subspindle with a double C axis. I'll try to stay out of the way here. Go ahead, Phil. This one still has 3 cross slides, which is equivalent to 4 cross slides on this machine, just so you know, because this machine has to use the one of those cross slides for a cutoff. We can cut off with the turret on this machine because it has the independent subspindle. On these machines, the turret, again, the same as that one, can have live tools in every position. This turret on this machine is also a Y-axis turret, and we can do off-axis work. You can also put angled tool holders on there, and you can do angled work on that. Although again, I would do that for longer runs, not if you're going to run 50 parts. What you just saw there was the overhead parts catcher. You can get this with the lower parts catcher that just comes out like this, or the overhead gantry parts catcher. The overhead's real nice if you're doing heavy parts or parts that are more delicate. It'll take them back to a much shorter chute back here and a little conveyor. It protects the part. It's also really good if you're doing long parts. So what actually makes these LICO machines unique are the cross slides. it's the way we can get 3 and 4 tools in to cut at once. And while you may not always have that many in, as you could see from the charts we did, and we've got some handouts of those if you want to see them, it makes for a huge difference in productivity when you can have multiple tools in the cut at one time. So again, they're CNC lathes with screw machine speed. That's kind of what it amounts to. Any particular questions from anyone? All right, well, thank you very much.
What's the spindle horsepower?
The spindle horsepower on this machine is 26.8 on the main and 10 horsepower on the sub. This one is 20 horsepower on the main and 7.4 or 5 horsepower on the sub, depending on which control is on it. And that changes according to the spindle size, but usually it's either 20 or 26.8.